Hello, Patriots. My name is Robert Patrick Lewis, and I'm coming to you as one of the co-founding members of First Amendment Praetorian. If you don't know what we are, maybe this is the first time you've seen one of these videos or heard of this, we are a group of military, law enforcement, and intelligence agency veterans who have come together to provide pro bono intelligence and security services for patriotic events. I want to use this video to give you a couple of updates about our group, what we've been doing, what we are doing, but also to pass along some intelligence that we've been seeing, some things that we have on our radar about the upcoming chaos that's planned to come after the election. And I've heard a lot of people talking about it, and a lot of people are scared because they don't really have any information. I'm going to try to clue you in with, what I can, just give you an idea of what's on the horizon. Also to dispel some disinformation and misinformation that I've seen going around being grasped on by conservatives and a lot of different people, some false ideas that they have about the upcoming chaos. First, I'd like to talk about some of the things that we have done as our group. If you don't know too much about us, you can go to my YouTube page, Robert Patrick Lewis. It has a lot of our background, has all the other videos that we've done, some of the updates. You can follow me at Robert P. Lewis on Twitter or Robert Patrick Lewis Author on Facebook. We used to have a First Amendment Praetorian Twitter handle, and as of the time of this recording this video, it got nuked. So far, we've had a PayPal account that was nuked before we even made a single transaction. And we've had a Twitter account that has been getting different account restrictions since we first started it and talked about what we were doing. And before I came on here, I saw that it had actually been nuked. I don't know if that means it's been completely shut down or restricted again or what. I'm going to have to get with some of our other members, and we have other members of our team that handle that account and see exactly what that means. But it really is, it's a scary sign of our times, isn't it? Right? So PayPal is a payment transaction platform. Twitter is a social media platform. By nuking our account, PayPal is specifically saying that they are fighting against a disabled veteran-owned small business that our entire purpose is to protect other Americans who simply want to express their constitutionally enshrined and God-given rights to free speech. I want you to really think about what that means, right? So there's a lot of different payment processors that are out there. PayPal is one. PayPal is one of the bigger ones. But just understand that we are in the United States of America, and by nuking our account, that's them saying that they do not agree with a group that is defending people who just want to express their First Amendment rights. That's a little scary, but there are a lot of different groups out there. We had a PayPal account because we're a 100% crowdfunded group. That means all of our missions are driven by you, the American people, who, through the goodness of your hearts and your kindness, donate to our mission, donate to our organization so that we can drive our missions forward. Nobody in our group takes a paycheck. Nobody has ever been paid a penny for what they're doing. All the men and women, we all volunteer all of our time for what we do. Every penny that you donate goes toward gear, travel to, from, and during missions, hotels, insurance, all these different things that we have to pay for to keep this group going and to do it the right way. I post financial transparency. We were doing on the First Amendment Praetorian Twitter handle. It was at @first_Praetorian. And now I guess we'll have to do everything on my own profile. All the other members of our group are anonymous because it's just a crazy time that we live in. I wanted to be anonymous at first. Believe me, this isn't a firestorm that anybody wants to walk into. But I knew that to do this group the way we wanted to do it, to be crowdfunded, people were going to require a face for some accountability in case something happened and, we used our money in the wrong way or something. I knew you'd need someone to hold accountable, and so I let myself be that person. I was actually doxed by a digital producer at ABC7 in D.C. We just did the Let Us Worship protest in D.C. over the weekend, and this producer leaked out. It was either our permits or the security contracts that had my name all over it. And again, it just shows what a joke our media is these days, because if they had done any due diligence, they'd realize that I doxed myself from the very beginning. I didn't want to give any Antifa or activist media the I didn't want to let them feel like they got to get something over on me. I didn't want them to be able to dox me before I doxed myself. So if they had done just a tiny bit of due diligence, they would have known that I already doxed myself. So speaking of that event, we've done a handful of events already. Our first event was for the Walkaway campaign. It was the Unsilent Majority March on Washington. It was there in D.C. The first weekend in October. It was a multi-day event. It was great. It was a lot of fun. We had credible intelligence that 3 groups were traveling from Antifa and Seattle, or from Portland and Seattle, to come to our group. That did in fact happen. Some of them ended up in jail. We had a lot of things going on. We learned a lot during that mission. Our men and women, we all have years to decades of experience in either the military, law enforcement, or intelligence. So we're way ahead of the curve on a lot of these things. We know just by all of our time that we've spent doing what we did professionally, we already know how a lot of this stuff works. We already know how to be operators, and we already know what the other side does. And thankfully, we have a very robust intelligence network and team that can allow us to be a couple of steps ahead of, unfortunately, all of the radical and activist paid agitator groups that are out there operating in our country today. So we did the Unsilent Majority March on D.C. That was our first event. Then about 2 weeks ago, we did an event in Phoenix for Walkaway again. This last weekend, we did the Let Us Worship protest in D.C. It was a beautiful thing. It was by the Hold the Line Foundation. Hold the Line is the group. Sean Foyt is it was the event organizer. He was the one in charge of it. He's done these Let Us Worship protests all around the country, and it really is a beautiful thing. We are apolitical and a-religious. It just so happens that most of our mission has us helping one side against the other these days. It's a shame that we have to break things down like that. But it is what it is. We just want to protect any Americans that have a threat against them merely for trying to express their First Amendment, constitutionally enshrined and God-given rights. The Let Us Worship protest really was a beautiful thing. I posted some shots of the crowd to my social media, to Twitter specifically, at Robert P. Lewis on Twitter. It really was a beautiful thing. Tens of thousands of Christian patriots there praying and worshiping and singing together. Sean's group is the one when you saw that California shut down churches, right? So they allowed liquor stores to stay open and weed stores to stay open, but they closed down churches. And then they opened up churches but said, you can't sing. Sean's group was the one that in Newport Beach was bringing together all the different churches to worship on the beach there. And it really is a beautiful thing because you're worshiping God and you actually get to see His majesty right in front of you on a beautiful beach. Whatever you think about the state of California, they have beautiful beaches, right? They have some lunatics in political office. But there's a lot of beautiful scenery, and I think it was amazing. And I think there's a lot of power there. I think there's a lot more power than most people realize. When you get a large group of people there focused on a positive intent, and that can be prayer or singing or just focusing on one thing, there's a lot of power. I think humans are a lot more powerful than we realize, especially when you get a lot of us together focused on any one sort of thing. And I think that's the power of worshiping and prayer to God. And I think that, depending on what you think, that might be the reason why they wouldn't allow churches to stay open when they allowed liquor stores and weed stores to stay open, because they want people to be afraid and cowering in their homes rather than in church and praying to something higher than themselves and being happy and being able to be in communion together with other Christians and patriots. And we're going to get a little bit later on into certain reasons why they may not want people worshiping God because of the different groups that are behind what we see going on right now. So I wanted to talk about the coming chaos and what we're seeing, what we see on the horizon and what we could potentially do, what you can do, and what we're doing. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people talk about is that Kamala Harris made a couple of comments that seem to allude to the thought that if Joe Biden got elected, a lot of this violence would go away, that the riots would stop. If you believe that, then you need to study history a little bit more. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, I wrote a series of articles for Uncover DC a few months ago called History Doesn't Repeat Itself, but the Darkest Parts Often Do. I did that because I saw Patrisse Cullors, one of the co-founders of BLM, give an interview where she talked about them being trained Marxists. And I realized most Americans probably don't understand exactly what that means. I remember when Obama was president, there were a lot of people that called him a Marxist, and I know I, for one, didn't really understand what that meant. I knew who Karl Marx was, I knew what communism was, but I didn't understand the connection. I didn't realize that socialism was what Marx called the first step on the two-step path to communism for any nation. And so I decided to do a lot of research. That's just, for my brain, my personality, when there's something I don't fully understand, I have to go and research and look and learn and dig until I can fully understand something. And so when I heard that interview by Patrisse Cullors, I started digging into Karl Marx and Marxism. And that led me down the path to all these murderous Marxist dictators that we've had throughout our history. That led me to Lenin and Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot and Castro and Mussolini and Hitler, right? So that's one thing that I think is very important for people to understand. When I wrote those articles, a lot of people saw that I included Mussolini and Hitler in with these murderous Marxist dictators. And there are a lot of people that said, well, no. They had anti-communist campaigns. They couldn't have been communist. The thing I noticed when you look at all those people together is they had a blueprint to tyranny, right? They had a specific path that they all followed. They all did basically the same thing when they got into office. Now, Mussolini and Hitler may have had anti-communist policies or propaganda campaigns, but they did the same exact things that all the Marxists and communists did. And that's one thing that we'll notice if you've been paying attention. There are a lot of these kind of leftists and radicals and Marxists that will say they're doing one thing to fool the public and will do another, right? So take Antifa as an example. Antifa, by their name, they're called anti-fascists. There's a lot of people, when we talk about the things Antifa doing, they'll say, no, they're not doing that. They call themselves anti-fascist. But they're fascists, right? What do fascists do? They use violence and intimidation to try to silence dissenting views. And that's exactly what Antifa does. They've been around for a very long time. They started in Germany in the 1920s. A lot of people don't quite know that. They've been here in America for much longer. They have a couple of educational centers. They tried in Tennessee, and they opened it up in Kentucky. That most Americans really don't know are there. Hopefully the right people do, and we're actually working with some journalists right now that we're passing off a lot of our intelligence to help them better understand, to help you better understand where a lot of these things come from, just how much this Antifa is just an idea, not an organization, just how much, to use Joe Biden's word, how much malarkey that is. But another thing that all these murderous Marxist dictators had in common was something that we call ordo et chaos. Well, we don't call it. If you are in certain circles, what used to be labeled as conspiracy theorists, you may have heard this, you may have known about this for a very long time. Ordo et chaos. It means order through chaos. And what does that mean? Well, understanding that, it gives you a better way to understand BLM and Antifa and exactly what these Marxist subversive groups are there for, right? So all these different Marxist murderous dictators, they got some power. But each of them had their own Marxist subversive groups. So a lot of people know about Hitler's brown shirts. Most people don't know that Mussolini's black shirts influenced Hitler's brown shirts. And those brown shirts influenced Mao and the KMT and Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge. Each of these different murderous Marxist dictators had their own group of subversives, and their entire reason for being was to create so much chaos and scare their populace so much through intimidation and violence and all these different things, so that these leaders that didn't have complete power yet, but they had a lot of power, could go to their populace and say, hey, you know what? I know you're scared. You see all this stuff going on around you, and you're scared for yourself and your family. I know how to fix it. I'm the only person that can stop all this chaos. But in order to fix it, I need you to give me complete control. I need to control the military, the police, the government, the purse strings, and everything else. And only then, when I have absolute power, can I stop. And anybody who knows history knows that it doesn't stop. As soon as you give those people complete control and complete power, it just gets worse. And that's where people start dying by the tens of millions and things like Mao's Great Leap Forward or all these different things. And we've seen that a lot in our society today, right? Just like Antifa, where things are named very, very nice and happy, shiny names, like the HEROES Act. But when we actually dig into them, they are terrible. They're terrible for the country. They're terrible for everybody else. In California, they're trying to do away with the equality, with civil rights equality, right? They are actually trying to get rid of that and make it perfectly legal to hire and fire people based exclusively on race and religion. I want you to really think about that. That's the group telling you that everybody should be equal and everybody should be good, and they are trying to do away with civil rights and make that legal again. Just to understand like where these people are coming from, just how much they lie to you. So when you hear Kamala Harris give some speeches or have some quotes that make it seem like she's saying, if you vote for Joe Biden, if you elect Joe Biden, all this violence will stop, just understand that it will not. Our intelligence has been seeing for quite a few weeks now that they've started to scale back. The professional agitators have started to scale back for what could be a couple of reasons, right? We just know that they've gone a lot more quiet. Now, we saw some major eruptions in Philadelphia over the last 24 hours, which makes you understand they're still frosty, they're still froggy. I think Philadelphia, I think that was an aberration. I think that was something that happened that wasn't supposed to happen, and I'll tell you why. So all of our intelligence has led to them taking a step back for one of two reasons, right? Number one is that the feds have been a lot more effective than we thought. And you can see this, right? So Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, all these areas with the rioting, there were, a lot of things that were very similar about them. Number one was that they had George Soros-owned district attorneys. So a lot of these rioters, even if they did get pulled in by police, they would get let the same night. They would get let out of jail the same night, maybe even the next morning with no charges. There were a lot of these areas where the police chiefs, they were not on our side. And so they would, either the police chiefs or the mayors or even the governors would hamstring their own police forces. They wouldn't call in the National Guard because they didn't want the riots to stop, right? And again, when you're dealing with Marxists, and a lot of these people they're Marxists. Don't fool yourself. They are working against our country. They are Marxist, and they want chaos. They want their dear leader to be able to use the ordo et chaos same ploy to their people. They want to be able to get complete control for whoever it is that they put in charge. So we've seen a lot of these things across these same cities where you had the DA, you had the police pulled back, you had governors refusal to call in National Guard. And when the feds finally stepped in, or the feds deputized local police, whichever one it was, you can watch the videos when they first started actually rolling up all the different paid agitators, the Antifa and BLM. You could hear through their cries and their shrieks that they did not expect it. They absolutely, it's almost like somebody told them they would not have any charges. They would never be held accountable for the things that they were doing. They actually thought that they could try to burn down police stations with police inside, burn down libraries, destroy cars, destroy property, loot buildings, and never be held accountable. And then when the feds actually started stepping up and arresting them, you can see just how surprised they were. You look at the look on their faces. They thought they would never have to do that. The thing you got to understand about a lot of these groups, there's an inner circle and an outer circle, right? Just like with a lot of these groups. The outer circles, they use the hub and spoke methodology, right? So you have the hub has a leader or several leaders, and they spoke out to different cells. This was started with the communists in Vietnam, and they've brought it over here and continued doing it here. You never see the hub. You never see this inner circle. This inner circle are the 60s and 70s era radicals that have been doing this and planning on this for a very long time and evading federal law enforcement for decades. And some of them are in very, very high positions of power. This inner circle is the one that they do the planning. They coordinate with the spokes that lead out to the rest of the outer organization. They're the ones that organize the financing, and they are very well financed. We saw a budget for one of their local chapters, and it was over $300,000 a month. So I want you to think about that, right? They want you to say they want to tell you it's just an idea, that it's not organized, that it's just an off-the-wall, organic movement. Things just happen at the spur of the moment. Yet they have $300,000 monthly budgets for a local chapter. They have pre-positioned pallets of bricks during these certain riots. They have DAs in place that will let them out if they get arrested for throwing Molotov cocktails at police. Right? They have governors in place that won't call in the National Guard. They have all these different elements. But yeah, sure, it's just an organic, on the whim of the moment movement. Sure, okay, whatever. But one of the things that we're seeing is, when the feds finally stepped in, a lot of that got quieter, right? So a lot of these places that you've heard so much about started to settle down a little bit. So that's option one. The feds were they were just being very effective when they stepped in. Option two, and this is what most of our intelligence is leading towards, is that they are refitting and regrouping, which means they're taking a step back. They are, number one, they know that their people were being arrested finally, and they needed their numbers. They were regrouping with their groups and putting their planning into place. They were getting all the supplies and equipment they needed, right? So again, they want you to believe it's just an organic movement, that it's, spur of the whim stuff. But we all saw the U-Haul prepositioned, the people that would drive up to the riots and open up the back of U-Haul and pull out all kinds of riot gear and shields and things like that. That is logistics, right? And organic, in the moment things don't have pre-planned logistics or the financing to set up those logistics, right? These are all things that show you concrete evidence that this Antifa is just an idea thing is completely a myth. We also have some other things that we're handing off. There are financial drops that absolutely prove that there is high-level financing being given to Antifa and BLM. Well, we know BLM, different Fortune 500 companies were giving them tens of millions of dollars. But there are financial links with who is giving money to Antifa, and we're going to pass that along. But our intelligence is leading us to believe they are right now reforming for a very large offensive, right? So the word we keep hearing is Antifa's Tet Offensive. If you don't know what the Tet Offensive was, it was something in Vietnam where they tried to completely overwhelm our defenses all at one time on one day. And this is something that we're seeing that we believe they're planning for after the election. And again, I want you to understand, it doesn't matter who gets elected, right? So they hate Joe Biden more than they hate conservatives. Project Veritas told you this months ago. Project Veritas got some of the Bernie Sanders staffers. Now, understand, Bernie Bros and Antifa are often one and the same. And Project Veritas got some of them on video talking about how they were going to burn down cities if Bernie didn't get the nomination. And what do you know? Bernie didn't get the nomination, and they burned down cities. Wow, that's so weird. Yet people want to tell you that Project Veritas isn't legit journalism. They told us exactly what was going to happen a long time ago. So that's what a lot of our intelligence is indicating, is that they are right now preparing for post-election chaos. And again, it does not matter who it is. These anarchists, they're not Democrats. Now, we believe they're getting a lot of their funding and a lot of their direction from activists on the left, whether it be Democrats or just leftists or the old school radicals like Susan Rosenberg, who we know is attached to BLM. But they hate corporate Democrats. They hate Joe Biden. They hate Nancy Pelosi. They wanted Bernie Sanders in control, and if he didn't get it, that's it. They hate both President Trump and Joe Biden. It does not matter. So even if Joe Biden were to get elected, but all data shows there's not a snowball's chance in hell that's going to happen, they still would cause this chaos. So what can you do about it, right? That's an important thing. From our end, we're trying to reach out to other different groups around the country to talk and have people be prepared. But from your end, you need to be very careful. There's something that a lot of people forgot about. During the Obama administration, he labeled patriot groups and militias as domestic terrorists. There are still a lot of people in power that he put in certain positions who bought into that type of thinking, right? And we can see at the Naval Academy right now, there's somebody that they've been trying to kick out for being patriotic. At the Naval Academy, there's some disgusting things, and there are, at all levels, through all of our society and government, there are people that still ascribe to this way of thinking that started under Obama. And the swamp is deep, and President Trump's been trying as much as he could to clean it out, but it takes a long time. So you have to understand, especially if you live in one of these deep blue strongholds like Los Angeles or Chicago or New York or Seattle or Portland, you have to understand that they are against you, right? So just like PayPal and Twitter messing with our accounts, they don't want Americans to stand up for themselves. They don't want Americans to help other Americans. They want you alienated. They want you disheartened. They want you to feel like you're marginalized. And they will try to stop any of us from standing up, from waking up, from being able to fight against that. If you're in red country, I hate to put it like that, but it's honestly the way it is. If you're somewhere else, then by all means, you should prepare. You should have a plan. You should make a concerted effort with your neighbors to all know what you're going to do if the chaos erupts. Now, it is interesting. In his Get Out the Vote video the other day, Obama specifically used those words, have a plan. And we are seeing it's being echoed across a lot of different government agencies. They're putting out ads to have a plan right now. And I want you to keep in the back of your mind that is very interesting. The left and the media talk about dog whistles from conservatives all the time, but we saw that specific phrase put out by Obama in his Get Out the Vote video, and now it's being echoed across a lot of government agencies. So just keep that in mind. But you should have a plan. If you're in one of these deep blue strongholds, I fully need you to understand something. You've already seen, if you have a DA that let rioters out the same night or the next morning after they got caught, being violent and destructive, they're not on your side, right? That means that they have shown that they will let anybody who's creating leftist Marxist violence and intimidation and damage, they'll let them go scot-free. But you need to believe that they will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. They absolutely will, right? Kyle Rittenhouse is still in jail. The Antifa guy that tried to shoot him, that we have video evidence of this guy having a pistol in Kyle Rittenhouse's face. The guy gave an interview the very next day saying that his only wish is that he had shot Kyle Rittenhouse before Kyle blew his arm off. Kyle is still in jail. That guy that had a pistol in Kyle's face first had a GoFundMe account that was allowed to amass a lot of money. Kyle Rittenhouse is legal to fund under crowdfund, under the GoFundMe. Kyle Rittenhouse's was closed. The Antifa member that is on video with a pistol in Kyle's face, his was allowed to go. Kyle Rittenhouse is still in jail. This guy that said his only wish was that he had shot Kyle's first is walking free. I want you to really, really understand what you're up against. And it's wrong. And it's not constitutionally sound. And yes, somebody should do something about it. But understand your AO. Understand your operational environment, your area of operation. Understand your situation and where you are. That if you are in one of those areas, the cards are stacked against you. So you do need to have a plan. But you need to be absolutely certain that you don't do anything illegal. And you need to make sure and just go into it with the understanding that there are a lot of elements there. And the ones with the DAs also have people in the police force. There was a New York City policeman that was just arrested for being a Chinese spy, right? So there are, in certain areas, through all levels of government, there are people you need to watch out for. So have a plan. Do not do anything illegal, but definitely be prepared. All of our intelligence is showing that they are planning, just for lack of a better term, a Tet offensive after the election. And it does not matter who gets elected. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden. It doesn't matter if it's President Trump. Now, if it is President Trump, we can be assured that the feds will do something about it, that there actually will be repercussions for a lot of these people. If Joe Biden does, I don't know. We've already seen what their response will be. We already know what de Blasio did, which was nothing, right? We already know what Ted Wheeler in Seattle did, which was nothing. Gavin Newsom in Los Angeles, nothing. Or Gavin Newsom in California and Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles. And, Beetlejuice, Mary Lightfoot in Chicago. They're not going to do anything, right? And so that, if Joe Biden does win, again, I'm a marketing guy. I look at the data. I look at the crosstabs and all the different polls that will give their data. Data shows that in a legitimate election, there is no way that Biden's going to win. You can just look at President Trump's rallies versus Joe Biden's 3 or 4 non-journalists that show up, and you can tell that with common sense. But there are a lot of people using both low-tech and high-tech methods to try to steal the election. But again, a lot of people are very worried about election theft, but one of the things I have to impress upon you, I follow all the different agencies of the federal government. I have for a very long time. If you pay attention to the DOJ, there have been almost every week, there have been people going to jail for voter fraud. Project Veritas just had another video series come out today about somebody else in Texas that's doing voter fraud. So just understand, we're worried about it because we're worried about it for our country. If you watch the Dilly Show, Dilly loves to talk about this. But you need to understand, President Trump has more skin in this game than any of us. This is our country. But he knows that if he loses the election, and the only way he's going to lose is through cheating and fraud and an unfair vote, he knows that if he loses, they will bring everything they can against him and his family, and they will lie, and they will frame them, and it will be a banana republic kangaroo court. He absolutely knows that. So just trust. He has more skin in this game than any of us, so he's not taking it sitting down, right? Just understand, we have friends that are in various places doing various things that are helping to counteract that. So just trust. He's on it, right? Just notice. Every time that some leftist activist tries to throw a big box of Republican ballots away in a drainage ditch or in a trash bin or in an abandoned parking lot, you notice how they're always found. You notice how they're in places that would be very difficult to just come across and happen across those, yet they're always found very quickly. Just understand, they have this on their mind. They're watching it, right? So I know it's something that you need to be worried about. We need to get out the vote. You need to get out there and vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but again, use your eyes, use your common sense. If you're watching this video still, I think we kind of know we're probably simpatico, right? But we do need every person to get out there and vote possible. But it will, I believe me, they're looking into fraud. They're looking into the illegitimate voting. We need to do our part, right? And as long as we do our part, I think everything will end fine, and America will live to fight another day. But be prepared, okay? Have a plan. Again, get with your neighbors, get with your family, stock up on food and water, guns and ammunition, of course, and just make a plan. The worst time to plan for an emergency is in the middle of it. So have a plan. Understand what you're going to do if chaos comes to your little suburb, comes to your town, comes to your city, comes to your home. Be prepared. And again, understand your AO. If you are in a deep blue stronghold where the DA lets rioters go immediately, the police chief or the mayor calls their police forces off and doesn't let them actually do anything to protect other Americans or to stop rioters, understand your AO. Understand that they likely will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law while they just let rioters go. Okay, so just have that amongst you. But I wanted to let you know, number one, there's a lot of evidence that we're sending off. We've collected a lot of intelligence just to disprove this Antifa is just an idea, and we're going to be handing it off to journalists. So it will hopefully see the light of day very soon. And they are planning. Just understand. Does not matter who's going to win. They are planning chaos. Again, if President Trump wins, we can be pretty sure there's going to be a swift and final movement to end it as quickly as possible. But we'll see. I mean, we know there are a lot of great, competent people in federal law enforcement. We have a lot of people on our team that are former federal law enforcement. We know there are great men and women there. So we'll see. Just understand from your end. Be prepared. Okay? The worst time to prepare for an emergency is in the middle of it. So I want to say thank you. If you support what we're doing, again, we're military law enforcement and former intelligence agency veterans that are providing pro bono intelligence and security services for religious and patriotic events. If that's something you can support, please go to oneapraetorian.com and donate. All of our missions are driven forward by the kindness and generosity of other Americans. It costs a lot of money to do this. There's a lot of plane tickets, vehicles, hotels, food. It takes a lot to keep this machine running, but we've got a lot of work. Unfortunately, again, each of us is looking forward to the day that we're no longer needed. But unfortunately, we are very much needed right now. And it looks like it's only going to get worse in at least the next several weeks. So again, if that every dollar counts, could be $1, could be $5. We have some people that have given $1,000. Every single dollar helps, and we appreciate you. God bless you for all of you that already have. God bless you for all of you that are planning. If you don't have any money that you could donate to our mission, please help spread the word. All the different social media accounts have tried to put a damp on anything that we share. So retweeting actually helps a lot. Liking doesn't really get it out of the algorithm. But if you retweet, if you see our stuff on Twitter or on Facebook, retweeting and sharing helps more than you understand. It helps it break beyond the bounds of that algorithm. It means they're shadow banning and they're dampening down our numbers. It doesn't have as an effect once you share outside of your circle. It's a huge help. So thank you again to all of you that already have donated. If any of you have the ability to donate at oneapraetorian.com, help fund our future missions going forward. And again, all of you that do that, thank you and God bless you. Any of you that can't donate, just please help share. We'll keep this going on. We post financial transparency to let you know where every single dollar you donate goes. Again, none of us take a paycheck. It goes towards our missions and continuing to be able to do this, to be able to protect Americans and help ensure that our patriotic and religious events are safe. So thank you for all of you that have and all of that you will. God bless you. God bless America. Deo et Patria, for God and country.